it's with great pleasure I can introduce my colleague from Southampton, Julie Watson, Principal Teaching Fellow in e-learning. She has got a wealth of experience in learning design and creating online materials and running distance courses. She's going to talk about social war. Thank you, Julie.
Yes, I'm going to tell you about our experimental use of a piece of social software in one of our online courses this year, last year rather, and it's a fairly tentative evaluation of it, as you will see. So essentially, if you don't know what a social war is, I'm going to show you it very shortly, so I'm not going to deal with that just now. Give you a bit of background to the development of the online course itself, and then talk about the course. The course is called Get Ready for Southampton, it's aimed at international students. It's a pre-arrival online course. Look at the social war use by the students on the course. Look at the way they used a discussion forum on the course, and then show you some of the data from our initial evaluation, talk about what we're going to do this year, and then there should be time for some questions and comments. So the background to Get Ready for Southampton, it actually goes back a few years. We've been running online courses for international students, pre-sessional course students, since 2005. We generally used to run a course called Arrive UK, which is a very practical course, and introduce them to the city of Southampton, the country, aspects of living in a new culture, and so on. And it was a short course that we ran for 5 weeks to fixed slots during the summer for 2 distinct pre-session groups of students. We had about I think at most we had 200 students on one particular course. But then since 2011, we wanted to sort of extend that course because we were really only offering it to students who were coming via the pre-session course. We wanted to be able to offer something to direct entry students, all international students coming to the University of Southampton, whether they were going on to a master's degree program, an undergraduate degree program, Erasmus students, visiting international scholars, something that would help them prepare. So that's what we've been aiming to do since 2011. Now, the Get Ready for Southampton course is particular, distinct from the other one in several ways. As I mentioned, the Arrive UK course that we've been running was in 5-week slots, fixed time. Now we found that over 5 years, we found that this wasn't suitable for all students because they were arranging their visas, working to save money for their time in England, so they couldn't necessarily do those fixed slots. So we wanted to provide something that was more flexible. So on Get Ready for Southampton, we run it from between May and October. The students can take it at any time during that time slot. So it's decided by the individual student how much of it they use, the pace they go at, and how long they use it for. It has a broad focus. It covers, again, the practical aspects of living in Britain, because this was what we found with Arrive UK, is what students want to know about predominantly at that point before they come. But also it includes some preparation for study at the university in terms of highlighting what the differences are possibly going to be for them. So we don't go in depth into study skills in the MP, but we sort of a taster. Academic culture and study skills. It's automated, so we deliver it through Moodle, but we developed a plugin that sits in front of Moodle. The students get an automated course invitation with a generic username and login, and then the sign-up process is also automated because when they go to the website, they use the generic form and then they create a little account, and this enables us to track their use later on. So we ask a few starter questions about them, name, country, which email do you prefer to use, and then we bounce back their personal login that they've created to them by email. The material is mixed, it's the best way to describe it. Some of it is self-access learning content developed in the term of activity-based learning objects. So, for example, we take the students, we put a link to an online supermarket, and in the learning object, the students make a shopping list, the kind of things they like to eat. They go straight to the online supermarket and they find out how much they're going to need to budget. At the same time, they're learning a bit of vocabulary, kind of collective. If they want chicken wings, they're going to have to know where the poultry section is. So they're going to have to be able to deal with some of those kind of collective terms. So some of it's self-access, but there is also, increasingly we're adding a sort of personal content, community building element through the social wall and other social software. This is what the homepage looks like. So you can see the login area there where the students log in, or there is a create your account button somewhere. I'm not sure we have put it in this screenshot, but there is a create your account button as well. And then inside the course, this is a section of the course where the learning materials, the learning resources are divided into sections according to topics, roughly. Students can use them in any order they like and what they like, but you can see the kinds of topics that are covered by part of the course there. And we've got a bit of the practical and a bit of the academic culture stuff there. Now, that's the social wall. I blurred the faces, and you can't read the messages in the interest of confidentiality, but that's part of the social wall that students posted on. And you can see that they've created, in most cases, messages where they sort of introduce themselves, say a bit about themselves. They put pictures in, someone's put their cat in there, pictures of themselves. This particular social wall that we use also allows students to put little videos in if they want, but nobody actually did it. But a fair proportion of them did include images and also ways to find them, contact details, which I'll go into later. They included emails, Facebook accounts, Chinese students, QQ details, Ren, Weibo, whichever social media they were using. So that's what the social wall looks like. So a snapshot of some of the general data before we get some of the specific. So as I say, we ran it in 2011 and 2012. So the 2012 details are in blue there. I can't quite see them. I'll move that out of the way. This one's always getting in the way. So, as I said, we made it available between May and October both years. In 2011, we had about 3,000 to 4,000 international students new each year who come in October, including pre-session direct entry. And so what we did was we spam emailed those students between May and October and told them about the online course. And we had 1,600 students created a personal account and responded to the invitation, created an account and did the course. Now how much of the course varied, but they entered the course. In 2012 we had over 2,000 students, as you can see. So we're hoping to build on that this year. Of the students that came in, we've only really started to scratch the surface of the data. We've got quite a lot, as you can imagine, from tracking and some feedback as well from the students. 20% were pre-sessional in 2011, and 73% were direct entry. So there was clearly a need among the direct entry students for knowing something about the university they were coming to, rather than hitting it cold in September, October. That was fairly similar the next year, last year as well, 23% and 77%. In terms of countries represented, 2011 we had 105, that went up to 130 last year. So they were accessing the course from all these countries. With little difficulty, we actually didn't have too many problems in terms of access. The students were applying for a whole range of types of courses, as you can see, foundation, undergraduate, postgraduate, PhD, Erasmus. We weren't able, because we were going into the university main accounts and just reaping off anybody who was applying, who seemed to be an international student. We weren't able to separate the native English speakers from the non-natives. And this was intended as a course designed for non-native speakers particularly. So a fair number of students from America, Canada, Australia also entered the course. They also engaged, as you will see in a minute, with the social wall. So they were as interested as the non-native speakers in exchanging contact details and getting in touch with each other. We sent a feedback questionnaire out. Having got the students' emails, we then sent a feedback form out after the course, after they'd arrived, a few weeks after, to try and get more personal feedback from them. And we got about an 8 or 9% return rate, 150 feedback forms last year, 2011, and that went up a bit in 2012. Okay, so the use of the social wall, well, you can't see all of that. It says I at the front, you just put I in front. So, of the, how many was it? 150? How many students? 178 feedback forms we had last year. So of those, 127 of those respondents, so just a snapshot of the whole 2,000, said that they opened and read the social wall. 44 of them only read other students, so didn't all post. But then 37 posted their own message on the wall. 9 posted their picture along with their message. 19 actually said that they had contacted other students via either Facebook or the Chinese equivalent of Facebook, Renren, details that people had posted. So they had used it to make contact with each other, particularly students coming from the same part of the world. Some 4 had contacted other students via MSN or Chinese QQ details, and a smaller number had contacted using Twitter or Chinese Twitter, Weibo, to make contact. And 12 had used standard emails that had been posted up on the wall. I'm going to go into the discussion forum in a minute, but when we compared the social wall use and the discussion forum use, because we put the discussion forum in as well, what we found was we got 375 posts in total on the wall, 167 in the discussion forum. The walls aren't really suited to having conversations. You can't create threads unless you give a lot of work to your administrator to do, and that wasn't what we wanted to do, so we didn't encourage them to do that. But, and I'll explain it now, we actually, because students started trying to talk through the wall, have conversations, for that reason we decided to add the discussion forum back in. Previously in Arrive UK we'd always used the discussion forum, so we thought no, we'll go for a social wall in this course because the students really only want to make contact with each other. They don't want to engage in discussion. Well, actually what happened was that they started having bonded, having felt comfortable with each other, they then started wanting to discuss. So we then reintroduced the discussion forum and let them discuss, as I'll show in a moment. So number of threads we got in the discussion forum, 55, 4,000 page views of the discussion forum. Posts with images, well, the discussion forum, you can put an image in Moodle, okay, but it wasn't clear how you would do it. But some of them went and found how to do it and did it. Posts with email details 53, 14 in discussion forum. So they started using the discussion forum, possibly some students who hadn't used the social wall, I'm not sure, but also for exchanging contact details. Right, the discussion forum, well, what did they talk about? These are the titles of the threads that they created in the discussion forum. And if you have a look at them, I've tried to colour code them so you can see that's all of them. I think you'll see that the categories that they come into, and this was a totally untutored course, so we didn't tell them what to talk about, were things, the vast majority were seeking people from the same part of the world as they were from, people looking for course mates doing the same MSc course, finding people who are going to do the same course as them, students asking for general information about accommodation. That came up a couple of times, I think, in the accommodation ones, the red ones. They're looking for a housemate, wanting to share a house, and self-introductions. Hey everyone, contacts, a few self-introductions. But the vast majority was about the course or looking for someone from the same part of the world as them. So in a sense, I don't know if you know the Student Room, which is a big national website for students, UK and otherwise, making contact. It almost mimics the Student Room in the kind of things that students are talking about. The longest thread was 26 posts from students in response to students from India coming to Southampton, and then 13 was for nanoelectronics and nanotechnology. And the longest threads turned out to be little kind of conversational microcosms of the whole forum, in that once they got into discussion, they talked about their course they were going to do, where they were, whether they'd sorted their visa, flight dates, seeking help with accommodation, and so on. Okay. Student comments. Oh, goodness, okay. The student comments about the course, I think I've jumped. Okay, that's where I was. Yeah. Student comments about the course itself, and on to 2011 first. Key things they came up with confidence, increasing confidence, a good experience, to make newcomers feel welcome, easy to use. It's not the same as being in Southampton, but it helps. It deals with the initial questions. Some saying our other universities are going to do the same. And in 2012, the size of the course, we actually packed quite a lot into those activity-based learning objects. It's a useful way to condense things in a semi-structured way. Gives the whole picture. And the last comment, a fair percentage of the students, I'm not quite sure how many, who received the email were 2 years ahead of applying. They were making initial inquiries. So for us, we feel it's got some potential as a conversion tool. If we are getting students who are possibly thinking about where to study, but haven't definitely decided on Southampton, certainly from the comments they posted on the wall, it very much gave the impression that they felt already part of a community, and that was encouraging them to come to our institution. Generally, most of the students, you can see, agreed or definitely agreed that it had helped them in some way to come to Southampton. So, the conclusions, and it's very tentative because, as I say, we haven't scratched much of the data yet, but it's not the same as a discussion forum, obviously. It offers certain advantages, particularly, I think, message versatility, student-centeredness, although having said that, the way we did the discussion forum, it evolved as a totally student-centered tool anyway. There were no tutors involved. Attractive and the multimediality of a social wall certainly seems to be attractive to students. Discussion forum, obviously, that's a better place if you want to have very discussions where you can respond. It's clear who you're responding to. But they do seem to work quite well together, so my feeling for this year is that we're probably going to use both again. because it allows student preference as well. So that's my conclusion this year. Our next steps are to look at more of the data, but also to evaluate, get ready for Southampton as a conversion tool, a confidence building tool, and I'm looking at developing it into a MOOC because I think it has got a lot of potential if we make it much more open than just students who've made contact with the University of Southampton. So that may well be the next step for us. So that's more or less all I've got to say about it. And those are the social walls. If you're interested in pursuing a social wall, those are all social walls. Or sometimes, if you Google it, sometimes they're called virtual cork boards. That's another name they go by. We tried Woolwich in 2011, and we did Lino it in 2012. I haven't explored the other two, but I understand they have some good use as well. So, happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much. Yeah, does Julie have any questions? I was busy writing down. Can I ask you what you think you need to do to turn it into a MOOC? What changes do you think you'll have to make to the course?
I'm going to probably, ironically, when we did Arrive UK, one of the problems was that we tutored it, and it was in the middle of the summer when most tutors are working on pre-sessional courses, so it was very difficult to find a tutor available to tutor an online course. And in fact, what happened was the students were asking the same questions to the tutor over and over again, and not reading the replies, or a few of them. So we took the tutoring out to get ready for Southampton. I'm now thinking that I will add it back in, but in a rather different way, given the course is running between May and October, that I'll design some activities, some discussion activities with some links to the internet and some more social activities that will be running through from May, because they'll have to, because the students could be at any point. So I've got to do that. And the marketing is also the issue of how do we make the wider world know about it that we're offering it as a MOOC. I think those are the two things I've got to address mainly. And a bigger social wall. I think there's several things I haven't thought about.
Well, perhaps because I'm back in a bit of time-wise.
this model out further and offer a pre-arrival course to all our international students coming to the University of Southampton. Now we get about 4,000 new students every year coming in October. So what we did was we spam email. We threw away the idea of a fixed course, fixed slot, because that was a major problem for students because they're busy sorting out visas and this, that and the other. And we opened it from April, about the time they were applying, getting their offers, through to October. And we also took out the tutoring, because we've had problems with the tutoring element, because students were simply asking the same questions over and over again. Major problem in the middle of the summer, there are very few spare tutors to tutor an online course. Everyone's involved in face-to-face teaching. So we took out the tutoring. So we put the materials in there. We decided to throw out the discussion forums. We didn't have a tutor. We used something called a social wall. I'm talking about it tomorrow at 2:30, the whole thing. So we used a social wall. And what we did was we spam emailed them through every couple of weeks. Any students went into the university system, found the students who are applying, spam emailed them, free course, find out what it's going to be like studying at the University of Southampton. And we gave them a generic login. We put the course out through Moodle. We created a plugin so that when the students used the same generic login, they got a little set up an account, set of questions. This allowed us, once they had their personal login, to track what they were doing. 2011 we ran it for the first time. We had 1,600 students did that. They created an account, responded to the invitation, created an account, did the course to varying amounts, because as you've talked about, individuals get different things out of courses. Last summer, we ran it, we had over 2,000 students do it, so we're getting better at it in those ways. But the social wall, what happened was, the students used the social wall, and probably none of you will turn up at my presentation tonight.
Took the brush.
Students used the social wall to exchange their email accounts, their QQ if they were Chinese, Facebook if they were UK or America-based. They exchanged and this was the hunch we had, they exchanged their contact details and they got in contact with each other outside the course. And the social wall was good for this. Ironically, then they started actually trying to use the social wall to discuss a bit. This was all without a tutor, but then no tutoring. So they started trying to discuss. At that point, we had to add a discussion forum, a run-of-the-mill academic, rather dry discussion forum, to allow the students to talk. And I don't know if any of you have visited the student room, which is a kind of web-based open thing. It began, I've been sort of looking at how it developed over the summer, and it pretty much models how the student room is. So the threads that students create are students from Uganda looking for other students from East Africa, or students wanting to share a house rather than live in halls, looking for other students to share a house. So really practical things. And they created their own threads and they went off and they discussed on their own. So completely without tutor. So that was our experience of an online course that involved a lot of students, but the satisfaction levels were quite high. We gave them a feedback form. We had about 8% of the 2,000 actually sent us feedback, and it was very good. I mean, they felt they got a lot out of it, and you can imagine for students in that situation. So a lot about confidence building, making contacts.
Shared interest is the key word. Shared interest.
So from their standpoint, they got a lot of the course, and from our point of view, it was a successful course. But it didn't involve much tutoring. I can't really say hand on heart there was a lot of sort of co-constructing of knowledge in there, but there was a lot of exchange of information. So for me, that was a kind of Duke. Different on my course, I don't know. But, and I'm looking for ways to actually, maybe next year, add tutoring with we added links to Facebook accounts and so on, to actually add something that's a little bit teacher-led and maybe does develop some particular threads that students want to talk about in depth with a tutor, but I'm still figuring out how to do that. But that was our experience anyway.
Mookish.
I think that's the way we have to go.
Can I make a comment on what you said? That one of the challenges when you do things like this in the open is tracking what's happening. Because people exchange their email addresses, their Facebook accounts and whatever, and then the discussion moves elsewhere, and then you don't know it's happening. So how do you show that it's been a success, that the students have been in contact, that have been talking to each other? You've lost that information because it's just happening elsewhere. It's just an acknowledgement that it is happening, you know.
Yeah.
But,
Well, you can get it from the feedback form.
yeah.
So,
But then, you know, if you've got 8% of people who return the feedback form, I'm sure there's
Yes.
a hell of a lot of other stuff happening. You know, they've met on Skype, they've talked by email, and we don't get.
And that's a big challenge,
It's a
really.
challenge.
Is in particularly for institutions, because
Yeah,
these
exactly.
are
Because you will have to then
they have to
justify
have
to the institution,
justify
I need to
costs.
continue doing this course because it's been successful, and they'll say, well, where's the discussions, where's the, you know.
Okay, so we just move on to our, we probably move on to lunch, so.
Yeah, I suppose one of my key interests in this is actually related to the open access to research debate, and one of the things that's increasingly concerned me over the last couple of years is how restricted academic research is to the outside world. How in most things that we publish are behind paywalls. If you want to buy some of my work and remember the public, you have to pay $25 for a 15-page article. Please don't, and email me if you do want to read anything I've written. This is highly concerning me. The way the debate has sort of evolved in recent last few months has actually concerned me even more with a lot of it, this preference for gold open access, publisher pays. I don't think it's any good if people can't participate in the publishing of research. So it's no good just having people being able to read what other people have done if they can't afford or access to participate. And this links very much with the MOOC situation, is that you've got what access to research do these students have? Our regular students, as a member of staff or a student at a university, you'll get a library card, you'll have access to all the online journals and resources, the library. And I think one of the connections I want to make is that what are the students on these MOOCs actually getting? Are they able to access translation journals? Are they able to have access to the OU library, for example? So in that sense, although these are seen as democratic and participatory, those students do not have the same access to knowledge that regular students are face-to-face and otherwise registered students do. So I think that's an important link that's perhaps not being made as much as I would like.
It's one of the criticisms that has been made of these massive MOOCs. Is it like second best? Is it just for the unwashed masses? Somebody wrote the other day, is this just good enough for the unwashed masses who can't make it to Berkeley and Stanford and Harvard?
And of course, the risk with the X groups, where it's you get what I dish up to you, rather than the connected ones where it's like you can all put something in, but obviously what can they put in. So there's lots of tensions there. Oh, right, Vicky has a question, comment?
Well, I wasn't. It was just I was just going to come back to is back to your definition of a MOOC. If it's about content, then what John was saying is absolutely right, access to research and knowledge and so on. But if the definition is about sharing and collective knowledge and individual gain, then the rest doesn't matter. It's actually enhanced learning rather than access to knowledge. So it comes back, I mean, you're absolutely right, of course, but if it's about what you can do together, then perhaps it doesn't matter quite as much.
The Open Lab at the OU, you've got a great situation with the Open Lab because part of the policy of the OU is to use it as an experimental space. So obviously doing the MOOC series is in line with OU policy. Has there been any pressure put on you or any discussions about using it? I mean, it is a marketing tool for the OU courses. But has there been any direct link between OU selling courses and Open Lab and your work?
Not
Not
really.
for
I
our course.
mean, we just actually thought maybe this is a good opportunity to find out about this because maybe we are going to do translation studies at postgraduate level one day. It was more for our own benefit. There's no course hooked onto it. that we could have sent anybody to.
And in fact, when we started it, Future Learn hadn't even been announced. So we were just thinking, gosh, the audio's not doing anything about this MOOC situation. Let's do
Let's try
something
something. Let's
ourselves.
just play.
You know, obviously it was all cooking in the background.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm kind of interested what the relationship is between sort of the open education resources movement and open courses, because I'm not entirely clear that the content is as open as we might think OERs are. And actually, what you're reporting is a lot of people are using these courses more like they might use OERs, so they're picking and mixing.
Yes.
So what's the point of the course part? So I suppose that's just something that I'm not sure you know what the answers are, but
OER has the sort of same restriction regarding access. It's no good, you know, the things in the handbox like a reading lists and things like that on certain topics. Well, if people can't access those reading lists, it's absolutely no use to them whatsoever.
I mean more on the, you know, you can take that, you can do something with it, you can put it somewhere else and share it, you know, with the wider world. You know, is that something that institutions are going to be putting Creative Commons licenses in their course materials, which allow that kind of freedom of sharing, because that is a part of what OER is supposed to be about. But it's more like saying you can come into our space and use the material, but we can't necessarily.
When you do a MOOC, by definition, what you put up there has to be in OER. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to put it up there.
Well, true.
You know, it has to be based on OER. I mean, we used an open translation manual, which is published as an open resource. We couldn't use an open translation book because then we would be breaking the law.
But anything that you created yourself.
What we created, I think the whole course has got a CC BY license. But you know,
generally the case.
The resources we created, the recordings of the synchronous sessions, they were all out there for people to.
But it's not generally the case with ex-MOOCs. That's the point.
No,
that's my question. Is that?
Yeah.
We need to wrap it up.
Thank
So-
you. Thank you.